10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, SEGA Live is, well, live. I'm Lee Kraft coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere north of Los Angeles, California. Over there is Mr. Dujanay Bland out of South Georgia and Valdosta, and from the upstate of South Carolina, the voice of SEGA down below, Mr. David Lancaster. Gentlemen, we get closer, and I cannot wait to fire up a season of SEGA drag racing. I've already fired up my season elsewhere in coverage, and we need to get SEGA rolling.
Well, yes. It's the 11th. It's the 11th of March. We race on the 11th of April, so we got 30 days.
30 days until we get some gassers on the racetrack. I can't wait. My season started as well this past weekend, and I can't wait to get this thing rolling. It's going to be one heck of a season.
That it is. It's going to be a great season. Things are building, and we've got a lot to talk about on the show. We've got John Leidick with us. He is the man involved over pushing tech, and we're going to get an explanation from him on many things and get an understanding on what Southeast Gassers Association rules are all about. I think, David, a lot of people misunderstand what SEGA has been about and is about over the years. And anytime we have an opportunity to talk about the why and the how of these cars and what they really are and why they produce such great racing, it's a good time to have that chat anytime.
It really is. And, I was going to tell John, we're not trying to chastise you, John. We're trying to bring the story to the people, because this man is working tirelessly and continuing to get a lot of crap from a lot of different angles, because he has to make the hard calls. And, to be honest with you, the tech department is not big in the Southeast Gassers, but we have grown so much over a 10-year period that we've brought in new racers who have new innovations with old stuff or looking like old stuff. And that's why you've seen the competition level go to the roof in Southeast Gassers.
Yeah, it's very important to, make sure it's an even playing field for everybody. And that is a tough job to keep parity and to, keep things the way that we are, looking to have them here at the Southeast Gassers Association with the gassers. So, it's not an easy job, but somebody's got to do it. And, they do the best that they can to make sure that everyone, when they come to that track, is on an even playing field and has an opportunity to turn on a win light.
The quality of a Southeast Gassers Association show is directly tied to the rules package. It has been able to foster the great show that is SEGA drag racing, and nothing against any other gasser group out there. Hey, if your car fits, come run with us. And many of our cars are going to run and participate this year in many other type of events. But nonetheless, when we talk about gasser nostalgia drag racing, the premier element is SEGA drag racing. Without, well, as Mr. Gasser Gear, SEGA SoutheastGassersGear.com, Stephen Smith would put it, no rival. And I truly do believe that. Well, we're going to switch gears here on the show. We're very thankful for G-Force Racing transmissions, whether that's for the street, for the strip, for the drift pad, whatever you may need a manual transmission for. G-Force Racing Transmissions has it. We had a great conversation with Roby Myrick. The last time that we had SEGA Live, you can check that out on the SEGA YouTube channel. But if you need to bang the gears, you need to be doing it with a G-Force Racing transmission. A word from one of our sponsors, and then we're going to transition and talk to the dreaded tech man, John Leidig.
Summit Racing Equipment. From the store, the catalog, or online, you can get your street rod, hot rod, personal ride, and even race car, including a Southeast Gassers Association ride, ready for action. Build with Summit Racing Equipment.
All right, John, welcome to the show. The man that receives all the nasty emails. How do you do this fine day?
Very good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, what is new as far as the rules go coming into 2026?
Well, quite a bit, actually. We've had over 70 rule changes throughout all 5 rules packages. So now some of those rules cross over all the different packages between the engine rules, the general rules, AFX, HGAS, and Superstock. The MSD claimer rule is a big one. We mandated that we run a stock MSD box. We called it out by part number. That way, if any other racer decides that they want to claim another racer's MSD box, that makes it easy to enforce that. For obvious reasons, with the modern technology that we have today, guys can get into these MSD boxes and modify them and do things, that we don't necessarily have the technology to do. So we had to write a rule that would allow us to claim a box and make it easy on us to try and get some of this modern technology out of the series. That's one of the biggest challenges. Working with the competition committee and writing the rules is, trying to keep in line with our old traditional rules package, but still allow for racers to come in with modern technology and modern ideas. And that's one of the most difficult parts is, bridging that gap. So, and that's, part of the reason why, the fuel injection, the mechanical fuel injection got so much, controversy in the off season. So
John, question being here, just for clarity, if I think that you're running an MSD box that is been modified illegally in your car, I can put up protest money or something of that nature, and they take the MSD box out of your car for further testing, or is it a claim rule that I get that box? I mean, what?
So yeah, the first thing I want, and I tell guys this all the time when I get a phone call on a daily basis, I do not memorize the Southeast Gassers entire rules package. I'm real familiar with it, but if you memorize things and if you say one word the wrong way, racers have a tendency to try and use that against you. And hey, I get it. You know what I mean? I'd try and do the same thing too if I was talking to the tech department. So the first thing we need to do is go to southeastgassers.com and look at the rules tab. And in that rules tab, it has a breakdown of how you can claim an MSD box from another racer. So the cool part about this rule is working with the competition committee, the organization will provide brand spanking new MSD boxes that are still factory sealed. And when you protest another racer's box, the organization will step in and provide a box, and then the other box will be sent off for testing.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how we're going to manage that. So, and that's a significant cost to the organization, but and that's another thing that we struggle with is how do we implement and enforce rules that are in the best interest of the racers, but are still in line with what we need to do from an organizational standpoint.
Thank you for
I think
clarity.
that's very fair and balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely fair. Why the extra weight?
Well, extra weight. Well, it depends on how the extra weight. Yeah. Yeah, that's not exactly, if you follow social media, you'll see there's been several posts out there about adding weight, right? So, and it's not adding weight, it's taking the weight break away that puts you on a level playing field with somebody that's running, carburetors. And what I'm assuming you're referring to is the mechanical fuel injection, the big elephant in the room. So mechanical fuel injection has been, a lot of people said that I ruined their Thanksgiving. So, because I released the rules package Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the organization released the rules package. And that's something I want to say up front is I don't make the rules. There is a competition committee and we vote on these rules. And let me tell you, the 3 weeks leading up to the release of the rules package, we had some very spirited conversation within the organization. And several times we had to table it and come back later because we could not come to an agreement on things. And we eventually got to a point where we're at. So it's not a matter of adding additional weight over your current engine package. It's that if you run what is deemed a modern mechanical fuel injection, now that's open for interpretation too. So, but if you go into the rules package, there are 11 rules, individual rules that have been added that specifically address the differences between modern, quote unquote, modern mechanical fuel injection versus the old school or traditional or vintage mechanical fuel injection. So it's not a matter of I got to add 150 pounds, it's that you lost 150 pound weight break because, the competition committee determined or deemed that modern mechanical fuel injection does have an advantage over vintage style or traditional mechanical fuel injection. So that's why that rule was made that way. And like I said, it's still to this day, and I'm sure after this video gets released, or probably currently, my phone will start blowing up, and we'll continue dredging up that hill.
John, I was told by someone in the competition committee or the tech department, just for my education, I was asking the same type of question. And from what I ascertained from his answer was a Holley carburetor has a 2.5-inch opening for the butterfly. And some of these ones that we were seeing on the mechanical fuel injection were actually closer to a 3-inch per cylinder opening. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. So, and it's much, much more complicated than that. I mean, I don't think we have, we don't have the bandwidth for this type of conversation to get in the nuances between all the different styles of mechanical fuel injection and the differences between a carburetor and the plenum area that's underneath of a carburetor vice individual runners. So, I mean, it's, it gets pretty intense. They are two different animals. And so modern mechanical fuel injection does have its advantages over the traditional old school stuff. So, and old school, what I mean by that is the old Crowers, the old Algons, Hillborns, and, even some of the very, very early Kinslers. So, and there are some manufacturers now that have come out that are machining their units completely out of billet. So, and those are the ones that were by name excluded in the rules package. And, one thing I do want to say is with these types of decisions, these decisions are not made lightly. We understand, the competition committee understands the work and the effort and the money and what it takes to build these race cars and come out and put on a show. And it's not just a show for the fans, but it's also personal gratification. So, these decisions are not made lightly. And so, but simply put, the individual runners are bigger on mechanical fuel injection than they are for carburetors, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are significantly better. So, I mean, that's another reason why we kind of talked about bore size on, mechanical fuel injection. And, one thing I'll add is that the rules package is a living, breathing document. as technology increases and as racers continue to get smarter and work harder, you're going to have areas within the rules package that are going to need to be adjusted. So, I mean, I already have probably a half a dozen or 10 things that I'm going to add to the 2027 rules package, because it's already popped up and we're talking about it. And and that's the other hard part about the mechanical fuel injection rules, whereas that we saw the future, 3 to 5 years, what's it going to look like if we continue just to allow these types of mechanical injection units into the series. And that's the hard part, is once they're all in there, now how do you work to get it back out or get back to a level set? Once the genie's out of the bottle, it's extremely difficult to bring it back. So that's part of the conversation into mechanical fuel injection.
John, with what you've been saying here, I've noticed that you haven't singled out any one competitor. What you're talking about is making changes to the rules to really keep SEGA, not to hurt one person, but to maintain and to allow SEGA to thrive from its very foundation.
That's correct. I mean, that's one of the hardest parts. I mean, you just talk about the mechanical fuel injection for a small block Chevy. Well, let's see how that works for a small block Ford. Well, how does that work for a Pontiac? You know what I mean? So, and it's across the board, and it's, and unfortunately, when you make a rule change and it directly affects an individual racer, sure, they're going to get mad. I get it. You know what I mean? So, that's how it goes. You know what I mean? But at the same time, from an organizational standpoint, we have to make these rules and enforce these rules that are in the best interest of the organization. So, and that includes what happens in the future.
Very good point, John. The line has to be drawn somewhere to put containment on this, or as you said so eloquently, it's going to get out of control. And with the weight situation, the question going back to Dugenet asking, I liked your explanation for that, and I hope our fans can understand that. We're just trying to, or the tech department is trying to make a level playing field, whether you're running mechanical fuel injection or you're running a carbureted. The mechanical fuel injection did receive a weight break for years, and now they're going to have that taken away.
It still does. Believe it or not, the mechanical fuel injection still does. And that's part of the rub that, that the individuals that, I hate to use the word targeted, but they certainly feel that way. And if you look at the rules package, I can understand that. The original rules, and, I'm fortunate enough to have a relationship with Quayne Stott where I can call him up and talk to him, on an occasion about this type of stuff. But the original rule was there to try and entice people to bring mechanical fuel injection, into the Southeast gassers, because honestly, it's a lost art. I mean, and these parts are extremely difficult to find, trying to source this stuff, trying to find nozzles and barrel valves and all this stuff for these old injection units. Is very difficult. And so that's why Quayne offered up, which was originally a 200-pound weight break. And so throughout the course of the history of SEGA, that's been reduced down to 150. And here we are in 2026 making another adjustment to it. So, if you run a traditional old school style, and it's fairly clearly defined, I think it's clearly defined in the rules package. Some people will disagree, of course. And that's fine, but that you still have a 150-pound weight break if the injection unit that you're running fits the rules package. And you could still run the modern one. You just lose the 150-pound weight break, which some people will argue that a modern mechanical fuel injection is better than a carburetor. So, you know what I mean? So, and back to my previous statement, it's a living, breathing document. At the end of 2026, we're going to sit down and look at everything. I get all the data from the tower. I get all elapsed times. I get miles and hours. I get all that stuff. So, I can look at that, and, we can sit down from a committee standpoint and decide if we're going to make any adjustments or not. I don't know. I can't tell you. I have to wait to see what the season, tells me.
These racers do an excellent job of trying to find more, how difficult is it to not only as far as making these rules, but with rules, there are always gray areas, and racers will find gray areas. How hard is it to stay ahead of that?
Oh, that's an excellent point. It's extremely difficult. I mean, especially with the electronic age and the AI age that we live in now. You know what I mean? It's intense, and I always walk in the line between, we want racers to be innovative. We want to look at the rules package, and we want guys to try and figure out, well, I can get a little bit out of this. And that's inherently the nature of any racer anyways, to look at the rules package and figure out what I can get away with and what I can't. And that's to be expected from a tech department standpoint. So it is extremely difficult, especially for us, because we still have old traditional ways of doing things. The Southeast Gassers, I believe, is going on its 13th year. David, you could probably correct me, I think. You figure that's 13 years of guys looking at the rules package and building cars and figuring out how to get around certain rules. And a good friend of mine told me, when I got into this stuff, he's like, look, he said, it's not going to be easy for you, because all the easy stuff's already been done. Now you're in the uncharted territory of the super hard stuff. You know what I mean? So, and that's where we're at.
Whoever your friend is and telling you that made a wonderful point. And again, John, you are that point person who tends to receive the flack from people or the praise from people.
Death threats.
Now, like you said, Thanksgiving was bad for some people because you had a chicken bone stuck in their throat. But at the same time, hearing you and having you as a guest on this show, it has helped my understanding be clearer. And the more than casual fan who watches this is going to be clear, because not a lot of people are going to go to our online and read every rule, because it will take hours. So It's great to have you on today for this clarity that you can bring.
Oh, and I think it's great. When I got the invite, I was like, man, this is fantastic. It gives me an opportunity. Right. And, I learned to stay off of the internet because it's really hard to stay away from the social media posts. And, I see it. I know what's going on. I know what people are saying. Right. But the problem is, and I'm a little bit older than some. So, we used to have this thing called voice inflection. And if you're standing in front of somebody and you're talking to them, you can really get a feeling of what it is that they mean, by the comments. And when you get into social media, those types of the body language and, the tone of your voice, that stuff goes away. So you don't know if they're kidding or if they're telling a joke or if they're genuinely mad or what the story is. And I learned that if you engage in those conversations on the internet without those tools at your disposal, you get yourself into some trouble. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of stuff on the internet from the tech department, because, and I have a running joke with the guys. It's, like getting in an argument, you walk into a truck stop bathroom and you look at the walls at all the writing and all that stuff on the wall. And if you go in there and you write on there too, you're not, that's not helping. So, because there's so much lost. And, but I will say that I have racers that call me and we talk that stuff out. And it's great. You know what I mean? And they have their opinion and I'll listen to it. And, and that's the hard part of the job is listen to guys that are genuinely just upset and irritated. You know what I mean? And understanding where it is they come from. The hardest part is it's not malicious. I'm not doing this, to hurt your feelings or to harm you in any way, shape, or form. I have a job to do. I have to enforce the rules package, and you guys opened up the show with it, and it's a tough one. So.
And John, we have told a lot of our competitors or people who want to come into the Southeast Gassers, oh, I'm going to build a car. Well, listen, get in the stages that you're building, get it approved. Talk to John, talk to a Quayne Stott, talk to a Brian Harris, talk to these guys who construct these cars and put them together So you're not going in there and doing something you feel is right, but it's totally against our rules. And then you're going to be upset again and wanting to gripe at people. You know,
Sure.
if you plan everything out, it can be a very successful build.
Yes. Yeah. And that's real difficult too. Back to the, Dujnay's question about, modern technology entering the Southeast Gassers traditional rules package. There's a lot of chassis builders out there now that have modern pro, and I'm going to use the term pro mod. It's probably not right, but modern pro mod style chassis builders are taking the Southeast Gassers rules package and they're massaging it, and they're coming out with some pretty exotic looking cars. And so, and that was another hurdle in the off season that I had to navigate through. And that's why you saw rules, and these rules kind of went under the radar. But I mean, we mandated that you had to put a dashboard back in your car, you know what I mean? And you had to have a package tray. And so, and a flat firewall, because we're starting to get into some really exotic builds and things that, modern building techniques that were not applied to back in the 60s. So that's part of that balancing act that I talk about is, okay, we got a new, brilliant idea. We know this works. How do we incorporate it in our package and still keep, the traditional rules? And the biggest thing for us is, what does the car look like? I mean, if you pick up a Southeast Gassers rules package, you're going to see a lot of rules regarding about what it looks like. And that is, and, some people, well, that's a matter of taste, or that's a matter of opinion, or that's a matter of, and that's really the hardest part is, writing a rules package that, how they did it back in the 60s and what it looked like back in the 60s. And a lot of guys, some guys interpret it differently than others.
Well, I do know that your department and you yourself, you all are ready to field the emails and the phone calls. Because, up at McKinney Corp, there's a SEGA build right now. And I told Murph, I was like, Murph, you need to talk, because Murph McKinney can build a race car, no problem. But I'm like, you need to talk to John and other people, because what they expect is completely backwards from what you understand. Right. So go figure it out from them. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I got guys that, double rail pro mod. How come I can't build that? Well, yes, because you can't. You know what I mean? So, and it's, what do you mean I got to use a 2x3 rectangle tube, two of them? That's crazy. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? That car's never going to work. So, I mean, and that's the brilliance that Quayne had when he started this, coming from his pro mod days. He knew chassis builders and knew what the tricks were, and he knew how to build the chassis to put it back in the driver's hand. And so, and that's the current chassis rules package that we have. So it is ladder bars and it is 2x3, square tubing, and don't get too crazy with a bunch of round tube in it. You know what I mean? So, and make sure you got a flat firewall on the dashboard and a package tray. And you start putting those types of restrictions, and it really kind of reels in some of the exotic stuff. Now, with that being said, there's guys that push the limit on that, so, and that's part of the balancing act.
Speaking of rules implementation, I have to applaud. I know many on the HGAS side of things did not like, as they saw it, letting the class be run away with a particular combination. But I know from covering NHRA drag racing that Factory Stock Showdown, NHRA Pro Mod, many of those groups, they absolutely despise mid-season rule changes, and or even in the case of Sean Bellemere and the Killer Bees with the Bartone brothers, a rule change to nitro percentage before they went into E1 of eliminations at a regional event. They absolutely despise those changes. So I applaud the, we're going to change things, but we're going to get through a season element. But with you, the committee, everyone involved, when might a change have to be done after an event? What's the scenario that you would see with something like that?
Well, that's an excellent question. So we hesitate to make rule changes mid-season because, it has a lot to do with guys that are building cars in the background. You know what I mean? So that's caught a couple guys already. You make a rule change and they're like, oh, man, I was in the middle of building that. Now I got to completely change it. Dominant combinations. If you read the rules package, you'll see that term dominant combination in there all over the place, right? And so, and some guys can interpret that some ways, and some, you know what I mean? And So that is kind of the tool that we use, that we sit down as a committee and decide whether or not this particular combination is dominant. So, H gas, that was a dominant combination, and it was pretty evident. And, that's one of the rare times that we had to step in and make an adjustment. And part of the reason why that happened was because H gas being an extremely diverse class. You want to talk about a difficult class. H gas is probably between that. No, I'd say H gas is probably, because there's so many different combinations that you can run within H gas. So when that combination came out, it was like, ooh, oh boy, we kind of knew it. And but it was untouched for 3 races. We gathered our data, and then we made the determination that we had to make an adjustment to it. So, and again, those are not the easy decisions. Those are the really, really tough ones, because you're affecting an individual personally, and that's tough.
How much time, when it comes down to these rules, are spent in the what I'll call the war room, trying to hash these things out and come to an agreement? Because there's many people in there. There's many people that have different views. How much time does this take to hash this out?
That's an excellent question. Well, it depends on the rule, right? So, the fact that you have to run a headliner in super stock's not that big a deal, right? So, and that was a rule change for 2026. So, and that was a wording thing, and that's kind of an inside joke. But you're supposed to have a headliner in super stock, and so some cars had it folded up in the trunk, which I thought was pretty funny. That's pretty good. So I had to go back and change that rule, right? It's got to actually be installed in the car. It can't be folded up in the trunk. So,
Racers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's great. You know what I mean? So, but you go from that type of rule to we need to do something about mechanical fuel injection, right? Or we need to make a weight adjustment for A-gas. You know what I mean? Or something to that effect. That's where it gets really chippy. You know what I mean? And you'll be surprised. Some of the rules that we'll talk about something like, oh, this is not that big a deal, and somebody's extremely passionate about it, and you're like, oh. Well, okay, let me back up. Let me listen here. Let's digest all these facts. Let's take a look at this and see what we need to do here to come to an agreement. So, and what a lot of guys, and I'm not going to let you peek too much behind the curtain, but there was a lot more rule changes that we were thinking about making, but we had come to the conclusion that this was probably, I would argue that it's probably some of the most significant rule changes, that SEGA's had in a long time. So, I've been with SEGA for 5 years now, I believe, something like that. So, but I followed it for a long, long time. Yeah, that's a great question. It's the short answer is it's dependent upon what the rule is.
Well,
yeah,
John,
I definitely think.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I definitely think this latest round of rule changes, additions, tweaks caused a big buzz. I don't remember quite the buzz of rule changes from the time I had Quayne on my Between the Slicks, and he announced live that there's no more shift lights, and comment section lit up.
Right.
Well, John, in my, I think this will be year 11 for me with the Southeast Gassers. This is the most significant amount of changes that has come about between one season to the next. And like you said, you've got to credit the growth of our sport, of our association. And, I guess you call the eyes being upon us, because your car does need to pass the eye test. It does need to look like a 67 Chevy Chevelle or a 55 Chevy. It doesn't need to look like some modern car that sits 3 inches off the ground.
That's 100% correct. Yeah. And that's, like I said, appearance is really big for us. And pure racers don't understand. They're like I got to get to the finish line as fast as possible. But yeah, in the Southeast Gassers, your car really needs to look the part. And if it really doesn't look the part, you know who's going to tell me it doesn't look the part? The fans.
Yes.
That's really, you know what I mean? So, you know, that's the key piece here is, you know, as racers, we're out here having a good time, and it's a great family. I love it. You know what I mean? So, but we also have a pretty big fan base, and, you know, I hope to grow it, and I want to see it get bigger. But, you know, and so part of that is to ensure that, you know, we have cars, because some of these, you know, I'm going to call them old timers, right? My dad started in 1965, you know what I mean? So, you know, he knows what a gasser looks like, right? So when he walks through the pits, it's like, and we get a lot of guys in that age group that come through and they're like, oh, I'll be darned, man, that's pretty cool. I had one of them back in the day. You know what I mean? So, and I think that is an important piece to who we are.
Yeah.
Can we get a dry hop rule?
Yes.
Well, you know, yeah, no. We can talk about that. You can petition the rules committee if you want.
Formally from the media, but can we get a dry hop?
Why don't you do one of those survey things on Facebook or whatever and put it out there, dry hop? You know what I mean? So
Gosh. I think it would lean the racers would have to pay people to go say no dry hop.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, a pure racing standpoint, you know, no, thank you. I'll pass on the dry hop. You know what I mean? So, but from a stand, oh yeah, for sure. Dry hops are cool. Short wheelbase car doing dry hops, there's probably not much better.
Well, our fans and sponsors at Ram Clutches may enjoy that.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Man, you know, let people know how easy it is to get in touch with you, because I think it was a very good point about if I'm building a car, let's just call, discuss, run by you what we're doing, and then they can tweak it from there to fit the rules package, and then there's no headache, everything goes smooth, and nobody's feelings get hurt.
Yeah, no headache and everything goes smooth is terms I've never heard. So, but so let me tell you what, it's a lot easier if you call the Southeast Gassers Technical Department, you know, and talk to myself or Todd Wimberly. Todd's still with us and still rocking and rolling. So, as a matter of fact, I was on a phone conversation with him 20 minutes before I came on with you guys talking about some stuff. So, the easiest way to get in touch with us is southeastgassers.com. You click on the rules page, and at the header of the rules page is our personal phone numbers. So, and the other option would be SEGA.com@gmail.com. That is that's the email address that we have set up where you can send your questions, and that works out pretty well too, because you can send me pictures and tell me what it is that you're doing and how you're building it. You know, to your point, it's a whole lot easier for me to tell you no in the middle of your process than at the very end. The last thing from a technical standpoint I ever want is a car shows up at a racetrack and I got to turn you away. I really, really, really don't do that. Don't want to do that. I will, but I don't want to. So, so the easiest thing to do is just keep in constant contact, you know, and that's another thing with the rules package. We try and clarify some of this stuff. We get some of these rules are kind of written a little bit from a very technical standpoint. The average racer looks at that and goes, what exactly does he mean there? So, that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
Well, John, last question. Go ahead, David.
No. I was just going to make a statement. You go ahead with a question.
Look, last question I got for you at this point, you know, after ruining so many Thanksgivings, do you think you're being paid enough?
Say that again.
I said, you know, after ruining so many Thanksgivings, do you think you're being paid enough?
Oh, brother, I don't do this for the money. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't do that. Yeah, it's my close friends are like, man, why in the world? And, you know, the only answer is I have some kind of a disorder or something. I don't know. You really have to, you got to love it. You got to want it. You have to, you know what I mean? To do what I do, to, you know, Todd Wimberly. And, I also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce Dean Jonas. He's going to be helping us out too. So Dean's been with the organization for a long time. So great guy. So I'm looking forward, tech department's growing a little bit. We got 3 guys now. So, but at the same time, it's very difficult for all 3 of us because, we all have race cars and we're out there racing too. But no, I don't do this for the money. Yeah.
Well, I think what you guys have done in taking this step in 2026 has definitely, you've drawn the ire of a lot of racers. But I think that we're making these rules to keep more in step with the inception of our rules that Quayne Stott put so much teeth in. I mean, I don't mean anything wrong to either of these parties, but Gene Fulton is a legend. We all can agree on that. Well, Gene attempted to put together a 33 Willis with some help of other people that did not even get close to conforming. I mean, he had coilovers.
Right.
Quayne kept telling him, Gene, this is not going to work. Gene, this is not going to work. He showed up at Greer Dragway with that car to compete, and Quayne told him, you're not going to compete. And there was a lot of people who bought tickets in anticipation of seeing that car go down the track and Gene Fulton being behind the wheel again. That had to be a difficult call. And you guys have to make some difficult calls. But I tell you, I speak for me on SEGA Live today. You have helped clear up a lot of this for our fans. And I think that's going to equate to a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yep. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Yeah, and that is that's a turning point in the history of the Southeast Gassers. I mean, that was a big deal. I believe there's a YouTube clip out there of that interaction. And so that set the precedence for, what the expectation is when you come racing with Southeast Gassers. So, and there are a lot of people, and I've heard this, wow, Gene Fulton, good friends with Quayne, you know what I mean? I don't know exactly their relationship. I know some of the pro mod stuff, they worked together. So, and for Quayne to step up and say, that's not going to fit my rules package. And that's a big deal. So he kind of set the precedence on that and, got some big shoes to fill regarding that.
For sure you
John,
do. I'd love to have you back in mid-season here on SEGA Live just for some updates and to further, again, help get the word out of what's going on, because it helps inform our fans. And I think we're getting a bigger fan base and a more informed fan base who thrive on wanting to know these facts. Are those Mickey Thompson tires? Are those, you're really using ARP bolts? Or, John, what do you see coming in the future? You might not can answer that question then, but it might be something that you're looking, into. Right.
Yeah. After this airs, or it's probably current, right? SEGA Live. We'll probably have to do another one next week to clear up.
Right.
No, I think this is a great opportunity. I mean, it's an intense rules package. There's a lot to it. And if you got a couple guys that are kind of standing on the sidelines going, man, I'd like to get into that, but I don't know. Maybe this can kind of, lean them in a little bit.
We hope that is the case. And John, thank you. I sent it out to you rather short notice as I was looking for a guest, and even, computing, I'm in California. He's still where he is at, and what time is everything happening? I thank you for stepping in, and this has been a great conversation for the Southeast Gassers Association, overall, fan, racer, tech, everybody involved. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care, John. We'll see you down the road, and probably going to be seeing him in some rule dispute at Shadyside over something. I'm sure there's going to be plenty. He's got to handle that first race, and we are certainly excited as we draw ever closer to that first race at Shadyside. As we mentioned earlier, G-Force Racing Transmission is the official 4-speed of the Southeast Gassers Association. When you shift gears, well, you've got to have a clutch to do it, and the clutch to do it with is from Ram clutches. Step up your stick shift game with Ram clutches. And it is not just clutches for, as you see there, the chick magnet and the gassers of the Southeast Gasser Association. Oh, no, there's also clutch packages for your car on the road, especially that high performance one. So get your G-Force transmission, get your Ram clutch, and get this, a word from our sponsor. Well, Dugenais, David, we've already had a great show. We'll wrap it up here in about, 15 minutes or so. Jacob, we got any great questions? If we do, feel free to bring them up on the screen. We'll take the time to read them, answer them if possible. If not, guys, I took a visit down to Mississippi before heading out to Bakersfield, California to cover the 68th Good Vibrations Motorsports March Meet, and stepped into Jeffrey Ferguson's hot rod shop, and that is one cool place there in Mississippi. He's got a lot going on that he builds and works on along with family, and got to see the Wild and Woolly 2 machine, got to see the 56 that was out there, and I can't show you the photos that he sent to me, but he's got one gnarly A-gas project in the works as well.
Wow, that's got to be scary for our A-gas guys, because I got to be honest with you, Jeffrey Ferguson has been really intriguing to me since he's made his presence known in the Southeast Gassers. He's not scared of anything. He's been 300 miles an hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats. He can just about do anything he sets his head to. And that is a guy that's scary, especially when you want to be in A-gas competition. And as Ben Christopher says, jump on in, the water's deep and it's warm.
You're absolutely right, David. I mean, as Jacob set up on the screen right now, this hot rod, it's been well over 300 miles per hour. Jeffrey holds the record in the particular category there at the Bonneville Salt Flats. So him pursuing 8th mile glory in the Southeast Gassers Association, frankly, I think it's an honor on SEGA itself that Jeffrey Ferguson and so many other racers, they've done so many great things elsewhere, and yet they want to come to SEGA and they want to compete and they want to win and they want to win championships in this organization. I think that speaks volumes of what the Southeast Gassers Association is all about and is.
Most definitely. Got a great group of characters. The racing is just second to none. And it says a lot about, the cars that are out there, the time and effort that's put in. And, it is really, really good to see folks wanting to come here, wanting to build cars, to be in a part of this. And, it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing newcomers come in and, making this thing even more exciting.
For me, look at the diversity in his shop. I mean, he's got fuel altereds. He's got roadsters there. I mean, he's got everything in the world. And also go back to our guest here today, John Leidig, the guy who's over these real picky technical rules. I think a guy like Jeffrey Ferguson, the engineer in Jeffrey Ferguson, he wants to see accomplishment. There you see the old moonshot. That car was the double down. That car was originally owned by Todd Oden, and it was a 56, the original double down. That car right there, as it sits with the hat on it, or looks like maybe a blower. But
Blower, yes.
Jeffrey Ferguson is an engineer and a driver, and he takes this technically difficult set of rules here in the Southeast Gassers and the feeling of accomplishment that he's going to have when, and I'll say when, he reaches victory lane in a gas or whatever, he will win. He will win, or he won't be stopped. He will continue to thrive and thrash. But just look at the diversity in that shop.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Had it all. Working on a donk car, as you can see it there to the left. He's got customers' cars in there that he works on. Some they store. He is wanting by 2027 to throw into the Funny Car Chaos ranks with another turbo funny car combination. You've got a fuel altered there that had competed at the March meet in 2020. It's been sitting there for a little while. They might be able to rent that out. You never know if you want to go fuel altered racing. The Bonneville Racer, the Wild Woolly 2 machine, not pictured. Yes, the A-Gas car and build that I alluded to earlier. Jacob, if you would please bring back up the 56 with the fiberglass front end and the blower. So people in the Southeast Gassers Association are familiar with that car, as you include everyone in, David. His intention now with this former A-Gas car, it certainly isn't SEGA legal at this point, is he was calling it the Blasphemy Killer. So he intends in the drag and drive world to be the first, I believe, into the 6-second range is what he said, of the gasser variety, or the 7-second range, and go quicker and faster than the famed Mr. Finnegan's Blasphemy that we can't apparently seem to set anything up with, because he's like, yeah, that SEGA guy, and doesn't put the right people with names and cars and things of that nature. Come on, Finn. But yeah. Mr. Ferguson intends to beat Finnegan with this.
Beautiful.
I tell you what, the only thing that's stopping Jeffrey Ferguson is the limits of his mind. He's taken me to a level of respect and admiration for what he does. And every time he talks to me about another project, I'm just going, when do you have time? When do you have time? And he just continues to thrash away there in his shop. And he is a credit to being in the Southeast Gassers, and we should be glad to have him.
Indeed.
Absolutely. And again, it is astounding. You get the stories from the racers in SEGA. You know, look, our own Leslie Horn, who owns, he has a motorcycle racing background and now is in the Southeast Gassers Association. We have world champions in pro modified. We have champions in circle track racing. I mean, they've come from all over to compete within the Southeast Gassers Association because, and I hear this routinely from fan and racer, it's real racing.
Yeah, these guys and girls are in there hitting clutches, popping gears. It's a driver's race, and that's what makes it so special.
Well, and also the gratification of winning an event, much less a championship.
Yeah.
But the gratification of all that work in the shop, coming to the track and winning. I mean, we all know it's not easy. Todd Oden's done it 22 times. Kenneth Phillips 17 times. Leslie 25 times, I think. It's not easy. It takes complete effort, complete selling out, and a good crew behind you. And Leslie will be the first one to tell you that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Speaking of teamwork, I want to give another shout out. Great work by Chris Barrett, Frank Stein's Garage, Adam Dobbs, photographer for SEGA, currently. We just crossed over the 220,000 mark on Facebook. So that number keeps growing. It keeps swelling. It keeps moving forward, and things are good there. And that's why people like ARP want to partner with us, the platform. And I spoke with Bob earlier at ARP yesterday, and actually they're at ARP. What an amazing facility. Did you know ARP has a restaurant? ARP, yes, the bolt place, the fastener place. They have a restaurant. And I don't mean like, Tex-Mex Cantina. Granted, they had Tex-Mex and it was absolutely fine. No, we're talking about in the evening, the white tablecloths come out, dining experience. They do everything with precision, literally from the kitchen to the manufacturing floor for their fasteners. Amazing process that they go through. And their eye for detail was absolutely mind-boggling to me. Having a background in welding and manufacturing, to see their standards, it's clear now why they're the leader in the world in the fastener industry. And I think ARP pairing with SEGA makes so much sense when SEGA has the strict rules for quality, if you will, that they do have. It just makes sense. But it's good right now in the world of SEGA, I think. And the only thing better is going to be that first engine that comes to life Friday night, test and tune at Shady Side Dragway. That is the only thing better that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, man.
Can I make a prediction who that person will be?
Sure. I think it's going to be Ernie Smith. Who do you think is going to be?
There you go. That's exactly. You're reading my mind. You're reading my mind.
Ernie Smith, yeah.
You're reading my mind. Ernie Smith he is chomping at the bit to get down the racetrack. So that's who it's going to be, in my opinion.
Will the chick come back faster after the wreck? That will remain to be seen. We only know one car that comes back faster after the wreck, so we'll see.
I think it will. I think it will. But to your point, Dugenais, I mean, Chase Howard just needs to roll the USA 1 Chevelle off a cliff and then bring it back, and then he'd be unbeatable. I mean, it's insane.
Oh, boys, I've already seen the new body on the USA 1.
Cool.
I was barred from taking pictures, so doesn't have any paint on it yet, but that'll be rectified. Not before the first race, but
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Hey, we've seen Chase compete very well with unpainted doors before and things of that nature. So, and that's another neat thing about SEGA. Look, most of these cars, they are showroom quality. Sure, you could put them in a car show. They would win awards, but they are race cars. And these guys are racing in them. And sometimes you can see them in the maturation process to completion while they're racing. And that's cool. I don't know. It's like a living, breathing, working thing for their programs and in racing itself. I like it.
Yeah, me too. I think it's something, that's unique and, kind of reminds you of the guy, building his car and he doesn't, necessarily have the money to get it all painted just yet. He's still working on it, but it's still a car that's able to be raced. It's cool.
Well, those guys have been thrashing pretty hard for several weeks now. And I promise you one thing, when he drops a clutch and the light turns green, there's not going to be anything scared about what he does behind the wheel.
No doubt.
Absolutely. We have a lot to look forward to. There's so many builds happening. There are rumors of this person coming, this person that's going to race. Cannot wait to see the action at Shady Side Dragway. Jake, if you would, bring up again that great poster done by Stephen Smith. Remember, folks, you can get all your Southeast Gasser merchandise from southeastgassergear.com. We cannot wait to get the Shady Side Dragway, and you don't want to miss the action as well. There are going to be so many storylines coming out of that first race. You want to be there to take it all in and then follow along in 2026 for what I think will be one of the best, if not the best, season of racing that SEGA has had to date.
Yeah, I agree. This schedule is it is pristine. I like a lot of the places we're going to. There's some new places here, and all of these places are just fitting for what Southeast Gassers Association is all about. So I'm really looking forward to getting the season started, and I'm looking forward to going to places like Greer, going to places like Rockingham. It's going to be a really, really fun season.
And guys, we've got a schedule that Rocky Platt and the owners have worked their tails off on, and we are exclusively in the southeast part of the United States because that's who we are. That's what we call ourselves. So that's where we should be.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another installment of Southeast Gassers Association Live. I'm Lee Kraft, a.k.a. the Monday Morning Racer over there. Dujane Bland, host of the Not Bland Show. Give him a follow. And down below, the voice of the Southeast Gassers Association, David Lancaster. Folks, thank you. I have on the Google Maps, it says 1 day and 2 hours to my destination. I need to get that 1 day off of there, so I need to roll east. Thank you, everybody.
Love the sound of a gasser banging through the gears as it makes a pass? Do you want that same feeling in your streetcar or truck? We've got the exhaust systems and parts that bring that iconic rumble straight from the golden age of drag racing. With a QuickTime Performance electronically controlled exhaust system, you can have race car loud with a flip of a switch or a push of a button. Give your ride that gasser sound it deserves